So the Your Values takes the client through a deep dive activity. It's aimed at understanding what they truly value in life and connecting that money to the meaning. So the values exercise, it will create the guardrails that we've all spoken about so far that inform a client's choices at key turning points in their lives. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to jump into my Lumiant screen just to make sure you can see my Lumiant page platform. Perfect. All right, excellent. So when you first come in to do a value session, this is what you're going to see first of all. So this is where we ask the client to imagine it's their 90th birthday and looking back, what are the 3 things that they'd like to say about their life's achievements? This is just a short exercise and it's designed to prime the client to think about past regrets or future aspirations that they may have. So what you will do is go through, you might say to the client, looking back at your life, if you were 90 years old now, what are the 3 things that you'd like to be able to achieve? Oh, sorry, say about your life achievements. So what will happen is the non-CFO is going to go first. You'd ask the question, you pop in their results, and then the CFO will follow on as well. Once you've captured the client's results, that's when the values activity starts. Now, it can be done 1 or 2 ways. So it can be done in the platform, which I'm going to be showing you here, or you've obviously got your cards as well. So that would be doing it face-to-face in person with your Lumiant deck. Before I jump in and show you how to do it in the platform, I just wanted to give a few tips if you are doing it face-to-face. So when you are using your Lumiant cards, just place them down 4 cards at a time, put them out for the non-CFO first, and then you'll follow on with the CFO. Each client, they're going to narrow down their 16 cards down to their top 5. You'll always want to start with the non-CFO first, as this ensures that the person who generally doesn't have a bit of a traditional say or have a voice, you'll be able to get them to talk first before the CFO starts talking. The platform is built so that the non-CFO is prompted to speak first, and that is captured how you set that up in your household details. So this is where you might like to introduce some rules to keep the session on track, also let the clients have a little bit of fun with it. So you might want to say as you're placing the cards down and as the clients are sorting them, we'd like you to pick your 5 cards from any color, any combination. Please do this separately. Don't look at each other's cards. There's also to be no judging, no interrupting, and most of all have a bit of fun with it. So that sort of just helps to, I guess, set the scene a little bit as well. But I'm going to be doing this on my platform here today. So first of all, what's going to happen is process is going to prompt the advisor to ask the non-CFO to select their top 5 values cards across the 8 dimensions of wellbeing. What will then happen is the client is then going to rank their top 5. So essentially they'll start on the right-hand side of the page and the client, you'll work with them to rank from 1 to 5. From here, this is when you're going to start to unpack the top 5 values that are important to that client. So this is where you're going to start to question and really try to understand what this values card means to the client. You will be prompted with 2 questions. So what does this card mean to you and why did you choose this particular card? Particularly with the first card or the number 1 card, you'd want to understand why out of all 16 cards did you choose this one first? Now, sometimes clients may dodge the question, they might beat around the bush a little bit. So you really want to try and dig deep and begin to understand why. And so that's really by asking why again. Now, an example of this could be, and I pinched this off James Williamson because he gave me a good example here, is just, if they've chosen maybe perhaps spend without guilt, you could then maybe say to them, well, how do you feel about the way that you spend normally? Or what would your ideal life look like if you could spend without guilt? So essentially by rewording the question in different ways, it helps to further understand your client's values and what this does mean to them. If you're still finding that you haven't quite got the client's full response, another question that you might want to follow up with is what happened in your life or someone that you know about that helped you or made you choose that card first. So generally, this is when you'd really then be able to understand what the client values when you have started to push and ask a little bit more as opposed to those first 2 questions. So as you're working through this, you want to add in notes as you go. You've also got the voice to text where you can capture the client's responses as well. And once you've gone through and you've unpacked what the card means to the client, that's when you'll start to ask, well, what needs to happen in the next 12 months to progress this value forward? So while you're asking this to the client and while you're capturing notes, you might notice that some goals might come out, and you can capture these as you go just by clicking on the quick goal, putting in a few notes, and then saving that. And these will be added into the goals module that you can come back to at a later stage. So you're essentially going to follow this right through. You follow the same process. You're going to spend more of your time probably on the top two. And that's because the clients are going to get a bit of a feel for the flow of the process. So you'll find that the last three should hopefully speed up a little bit as well. Now, once you've done that for the non-CFO, that's when you're going to go into the CFO, and you're just going to follow the same process. So pick the top 5, rank the top 5, unpack the top 5. And then what will happen is this is where you're going to come in and actually align the values. So when you're coming into aligning the values, this is where essentially the clients are going to move from 10 cards to a joint top 5. This is why it's really important to understand the why for each card and why that's so important to the person, because this is going to help to, I guess, effectively be able to narrow down that top 10 down to the 5. In the aligning of the cards, as you get a little bit more experience, you might be able to recognize that there might be some similarities between the cards. You might notice that maybe 2 cards mean the same thing between the couple. So you can continue to sort of prompt and ask the client to order their cards and discuss why they are important. So you can say things like, does this card rank higher over the other? Why? So you can really use that as a bit of a way to facilitate the process, but you definitely don't want to make any decisions for the client. So once the top 5 have been achieved, this is when you're then going to go in and start to put a progress on that. And so it's important to capture a progress score of how the client is actually currently tracking. And a way that you might say that is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1, you haven't started to do anything towards this. 10, you've already done it. How far along do you think that you are with this? So you would go in, you would set a progress, you would capture that progress score for the client. You can also ask them, why did they choose that? What needs to happen to improve this? And put some notes in as you go. So you would, skipped a bit too far back. So you would go through and you would do this for all of the values. And once you've done that, it's really important that you do set these progress scores, because it is going to be the foundations for your annual review meeting. So what will happen, come the time of your annual review meeting, this is where you're really going to prompt the client to update their progress of each value before talking through, their financial plan and what can be tweaked to further improve their well-being. And with these scores, it also does pull through into the client's well-being score. So as their progress scores are improving, their well-being score is also going to improve. And that's really going to help you to track the value of your relationship and advice with the client as well.